I speaking with right now?
This is Sean Clark, sir.
And where do you live, Sean?
Well, I live in the movie location, sir.
And why the movie locations?
'Cause that's where it was all shot, sir.
No. About 15 minutes. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll tell him right now.
This is the entrance to Danvers State Mental Hospital. This gate and stop sign are no longer there today, but this is where the security guard meets Phil and Gordon and brings them up to the building.
Look at this.
(1871). That's when she went up, gentlemen. We called her the Kirkbride Building, named after Dr. Thomas Kirkbride.
I'm now standing in front of the Kirkbride Building. This is all that's left of the original building at Danvers State Asylum. Right behind me, that's the center there, the center of the Batwing, as he describes in the film.
A giant flying bat. You know, the main staff building's in the middle, the bat body, and slanting off to each side are these like giant crooked bat wings. You know, one for female patients, the other for male, you know?
This was the center of the Batwing. So it's from the doors over there where Gordon walks out with the man talking about trying to get the job to do this. Anyway, today it's luxury apartments. It's Halstead Danvers is what it's called. And people are actually living in old mental patient rooms. I mean, obviously they've been renovated and they're super fancy now and apparently very high end and highly sought after. But this building was built in 1878 and was in use until 1992 when it shut down for good and remained basically vacant and boarded up. Every one of these windows was boarded up, which is while we were inside, it was pitch black. If you turned your flashlight off, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. It was that dark in there and creepy as hell. Well, now we're gonna go to some footage that I shot back in about 2004, I believe, inside the hospital. Now, mind you, I wasn't making a TV show then. This was just stuff me and my friends were shooting for fun, and we were film geeks and still are. And since it's the only way we can see what it looked like back in the day, we're gonna look at a lot of that footage mixed in with some new footage. So I hope you enjoy. Let's go check it out. In 1878, the State Lunatic Hospital at Danvers was erected under the supervision of prominent Boston architect Nathaniel J. Bradley. While the hospital was originally established to provide residential treatment and care to the mentally ill, its functions expanded to include a training program for nurses in 1889 and a pathological research laboratory in 1895. By the 1920s, the hospital was operating school clinics to help determine mental deficiency in children.
This used to be a solarium. I call it the Coppertone room. Well, here we are, gentlemen. Danvers Town Hall. Reclaiming the dark past to build a brighter future.
During the 1960s, as a result of increased emphasis on alternative methods of treatment, deinstitutionalization, and community-based mental health care, the inpatient population started to decrease. Danvers State Hospital closed on June 24, 1992, due to budget cuts within the mental health system. Dr. Thomas Story Kirkbride, who served the Pennsylvania hospital as the superintendent from 1841 to 1883, created a humane and compassionate environment for his patients, and believed that beautiful settings restored patients to a more natural balance of the senses. Dr. Kirkbride's progressive therapies and innovative writings on hospital design and management became known as the Kirkbride Plan, which influenced in one form or another almost every American state hospital by the turn of the century, including Danvers. Abandoned since 1992, the Danvers State Hospital occupied a site of over 500 acres with a commanding view of Boston 18 miles to the south. The Kirkbride complex consisted of 17 buildings erected from 1874 to 1878. Right now I'm at the rear of the Kirkbride building. This is actually where the gymnasium used to be. It was a section that went like this, took up this whole area, basically where the swimming pool is, came out about out in this area here. This is where the gymnasium was. This is where Mike, played by Stephen Jevedon, was killed. It was actually the roof of this building, of this section of the building, the gymnasium, where I got in the first time inside Danvers. The first time, allegedly. Now we're inside the gymnasium. You may notice some of the graffiti on the walls there, specifically those figures we're looking at. Those were added by production. A lot of the graffiti was already there. Some of it they added too. I don't know if Roger was added or not. Who's Roger?
It's a self-contained town. Church, movie theater, bowling alley, you know.
One of the rooms you see several times in the film is the kitchen. You first see it when he's giving them the tour of the facility, and then later on, Hank has a discussion with Mullethead. As you can see here, Gordon's passing by the broken window with the American flag on it. Director Brad Anderson said he liked this imagery. It reminded him of the American dream gone awry. As you can see, I'm a nerd and I had to take a piece of it with me.
What's the dining area?
Going to be a lot of foot traffic?
Well, yeah, it's like a library.
They then walk from the kitchen into the room where we always see Jeff riding the machine that scrapes up the tiles. These two rooms are in fact connected. However, the doorway just next to it, where Mike always goes down to supposedly check the breaker but instead goes to the file room to listen to the session tapes, actually does not lead to any stairs at all.
Go in there without your bathing suit. This is seclusion.
In the room that Phil goes in and discovers the clippings on the wall, most of them were still there when I visited back in 2004. Fans that have been there before us had left markers on the wall, as you can see here, MHRM this way, which stands for Mary Hobbs Room. It was helpful for people that don't know where things are because the place is about the size of a mall. The famous hallway, as seen in the one sheet, is the actual hallway outside of Mary Hobbs' room. That chair, unfortunately, was not there, or I probably would have taken it home with me. We are now inside Mary Hobbs' room, patient 444. All the photos that were stuck to the wall of the baby and the baby's christening were gone, but the red goo is still present, as were a lot of the clippings. You may see the one right there in the middle of the woman. You might notice it right here, up close. It was still there. But this one of the baby doll, I happened to grab that completely randomly, got home, looked at the film, and was pretty stoked.
Freaking beautiful.
Due to our concerns about the air quality and asbestos levels, we brought in a bird with us just to test it. Obviously, that test didn't go well. Ward A was the ward for extreme patients. I was very stoked when I saw this letter on the wall, and I had to stop and take a photo. When my buddies took me to the area where Hank finds the coins, they tried to play a little trick on me and have somebody go on the other side and stick their hand through to scare me.
That scared the shit out of me, dude.
It didn't really work, but it was still funny, so he flipped me off. On the other side of the wall, they built a little funnel system to push the coins and stuff through. But when they show it in the film, the other side is a morgue. Now that was actually in a different building altogether. That was a set they built inside the Bonner Medical Building, which coincidentally served as the actual morgue for the Danvers State Hospital. Now we are in one of the subtunnels of the building. This is the first subtunnel. There's two of them. There's one just below the first floor, which is the one we're walking through now. I like the little Hello Gordon graffiti right there. It's a nice touch to whichever fan did that. This area here was a real bitch to find because there was a lot of spots that looked like this spot in the building, and it took us quite a while to find the right one. There's me looking like a geek with a lamp on my head. Yeah, it was really good to have guys to take me in the building that knew the building well, because I wouldn't have found 75% of this stuff without their help.
He hit Wendy, Mike. Now, I've got Craig coming over tomorrow. If Griggs hears about this, you understand what that means, right?
Right here is where Gordon is listening to Mike and Phil have the conversation about him losing it. There's some nice graffiti in here. Have another Twinkie, can't reach, and Fat Boy. Right here is where Jeff discovers Hank looking out the window and saying,
"What are you doing here?"
This is also where David Caruso has his greatest line in the film. And you know that one. Fuck you.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
Let me get this.
This was by far my favorite location to find, just because I didn't expect it to look exactly the way it did in the film. This hallway with the arms lining the wall looks like a bunch of jumpsuits or something, or medical suits lining the wall, but it's actually just a long sheet of plastic with arms attached to it. I really don't know what they're for, but they were still there, and there was big piles of unused ones there as well. The end of the hallway with the arms led into this little room. This is where the cast and crew carved and wrote their names on the wall. This was also the room used for the scene where Hank is sitting on the couch in his living room. It was one of the only sets other than the morgue that they built inside the building.
How did you figure that out?
My friend works security here. We used to smoke weed on the couch.
After the lights go out in the hallway and Jeff is running in the dark, he then exits through the front of the Gray Gables. This is another one of the buildings that was on the property but no longer there today. The area where David Caruso goes down the ladder into another sublevel, this is going from sublevel 1 to sublevel 2, where it gets really down and dirty in there.
I want you to stay right there. To see or hear anything you call me, you understand me?
I left my walkie in the van.
Stay there.
Sublevel 2 is really nasty, and low ceilings and mud on the ground. It was pretty gross down there. That is the area that leads to where Phil discovers Hank sitting on the ground talking to himself. Being inside this building was definitely creepy as hell, but getting in the building was probably the biggest adrenaline rush. It was patrolled by security 24 hours a day and was less than a mile away from the sheriff's station, so it was definitely an adrenaline rush just getting inside. Once you're inside, you kind of calm down, and then the creepiness and the musky sort of damp smell takes over, and it just felt like death in that place.
Wake up. And remember.
So now we're sitting across the street from Gordon's house, 703 Linfield Street in Lynn. About 5 miles from Danvers State Insane Asylum. It was right on the other side of that door where Wendy and the baby supposedly met their demise.
What's a vacation, Gordon?
Just down the road from the hospital is Sapino's restaurant. This was the location used for the bar scene where David Caruso is sitting there having a cocktail alone. So you might recognize this little gazebo here and a walkway, stairs going down. This is one of the few remaining locations from Session 9. This is the gazebo that Gordon would look at when he started to hear the, which whenever you heard that sound in the movie, Brad Anderson, the director, said that signified that he was starting to go crazy when he'd hear that sound. Anyway, at some point in the film, he heads over here and he walks down this way. It's really cool that they kept this. There isn't too much left that you can recognize. I was dead sure that this was going to be gone, but it's cool that it's still here. And it's directly behind the Kirkbride. So as you can see over my shoulder, there's the Kirkbride building. Now right over here is sort of a lookout point they built. Now, the interesting thing about this is it looks out over into sort of the forest over here behind these houses. But what a lot of people don't know, and I don't even think too many of the residents know, that if you follow this path down and around back into those woods way down there is actually the Danvers Cemetery, where all the patients, former patients, are buried. We're now entering the Danvers State Hospital Cemetery, the echoes they left behind. Anyway, when I visited here about 12 years ago, it was very different. It actually looked like the cemetery you see in the film, which they fabricated up closer to the building. They've completely changed it. It used to just be those like hexagon-shaped tombstones with numbers on them. They didn't have people's names. So what they've done in the meantime, as you can see, they've changed them out and actually put the patients' names and put plaques down on the ground instead of just the nameless numbers. And there used to be a big display, if you will, that had a memorial that had the actual names. So I guess they did their research and tried to make this look a little more presentable, since they have condos right there now. And, you know, it might seem a little, I don't know, unsympathetic to have just numbers on tombstones. So as you can see, here is what is left of the actual tombstones that have been in the cemetery for over 100 years. Don't know if this was 444, but that was Mary Hobbs' number. And who knows if this could have been Mary Hobbs' tombstone. Well, obviously the one in the film was fake, but that was her patient number. Yeah, these things are reinforced with steel bars going through them. You can see some people tried to break them to maybe take a piece, which I respect and understand and would love to have one of these just as a memento. Yeah, it's be quite a bitch. I'd say they're probably at least 60, 70 pounds. They're pretty heavy. It's sad, but there was a lot of pain. A lot of pain came from this building. Pretty fucked up. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Horrors Hallowed Grounds. This was definitely sort of a passion piece for me. This is something I never thought I'd get the chance to do because the building having been torn down and everything. It's pretty amazing to come back here over a decade later and see how it's changed. It's still a pretty beautiful area and remarkable. I wish you could have experienced what I got to experience inside that building, and I hope that that footage that we used from way back when, as crappy as some of it might be, was you know, worth checking out, because hands down, as long as I've been doing this, this has always been my #1 favorite location I've ever visited, and I don't think Danvers Insane Asylum could ever be topped. The way it was back when I was in there in 2004, it's just, it's unmatched. I mean, that feeling, I just can't even describe it. It's pretty intense. So anyway, again, thanks for joining me in.
Hello, Gordon.
This was Danvers State Mental Hospital. At one time it was called Danvers State Insane Asylum, but then they changed the name. I guess that didn't sound as PC. Nowadays, PC, give me a break. You can't say anything anymore. You can't say nut jobs, because I'd be calling it Danvers Nut House. But no, you can't do that.
He's like, yeah, babe, you can. Whoa, that's a bat. That's a fucking bat.
Okay, gotta get a picture in this one.
that scared the shit out of me, dude.
Save it. Hold on.
Take a picture of that, dude.
Hold on.
It's gotta be John.
Of course, he's the only one not here. All right, got it.
All right, that's cool. What looks like blood? The rust. Oh, the rust. I know. It looks freaky.
This looks cool though, huh?
Yeah, I'm into this.